When I was in college, my first time kind of going away from home, my mother told me that she'd like to hear from me once in a while. Pick up the phone and give me a call. And, you know, in my German pragmatic sense, my knee-jerk response would have been, and kind of was in my own mind, if you want to talk to me, why don't you call me? You know, that made sense to me as a kid. I didn't say that to her. But, you know, there's lots logical, right? That's how the world would think. That's how we understand things to be in this life. That's the person who wants to talk, and that's the person who picks up the phone and calls me. But in the spiritual life, we speak a different language. We speak a language of love. And it's the language that God, the Creator, when He created us in His image, created us in. It's a language that flies in the face of this world, and it's something that we are called to speak fluently in this church, despite what might come across in the eyes of the world. And really what my mother was saying was not pick up the phone or I want you to call. She was saying, I want you to want me as much as I want you. I want you to love me as much as I love you. And I wish that you were so converted with that language, the language of love from the inside out, that you would want to call me. And then it's less about what makes sense and more about how do I more fluently speak that language. Jeremiah's giving that pragmatic language to the people, right? And the pragmatic language is having a whole lot of effect. You know, he's in the sense, in the pragmatic world, and that which makes sense to us, it might have been just to do that to Jeremiah. If you only looked at things from that perspective, and you ignored that God sent Jeremiah, and that there's something more here that may or may not make sense to these people. He's demoralizing the military. I mean, if I had one person demoralizing just a platoon of 40, I'd probably act on that as a military commander, you know. But Jeremiah is demoralizing the entire military by telling them the message that God wanted him to preach. And if you're keeping track of the kings, this is not one of the better kings in Israel. So it's messing with his worldly way of doing things, and he's going to handle it in a worldly way. He's going to place Jeremiah in a cistern. If anybody's familiar with Psalm 88, you might be familiar with the cistern. It's where he's cast down into darkness. I have no bread. My clothes have been let's see. So he's thrown down into the depths. He has, all his friends are gone, he is scattered, and my one companion is darkness. It's the only psalm that ends in turmoil. Every other psalm is uplifting at the end, or has a promise of God, or has something that says God is present for us. In Psalm 88 ends, this is the end. Christ was thrown into a cistern also. So it's a good connection there, that the prophet of God, the words of God, what hits the ears of the people, the message of God through a human being, is prefiguring what God himself is going to actually do, which is to endure first the loss of his friends, which is probably a greater loss than any physical torture, the absence of any love or anyone else who might speak that language of love to us. The concept of us all getting along is another worldly thing. You know, we can kind of sacrifice our own views. We can say, I can make concessions here and there. You know, in Northern Ireland, there is having visited there and gone on a tour of the city, especially of the Bloody Sunday that U2, of course, sings about. I've been in those streets and had went on that tour of the city, what happened where, etc. The Irish are so tired of conflict in Northern Ireland that they'd rather believe nothing than see any more violence. We've discussed who the prince of the world is. Guess who won that round? the world. The prince of the world. That's exactly what the devil wants. There's nothing worth fighting for. We'll all make a concession. We won't stand up for anything. The Irish, it doesn't matter what comes in. If there's any violence that looks like it's going to happen, or any turmoil, or people just are ready to say, I don't disagree with you, it's okay. They've just as a state, the entire state of Northern Ireland a couple of years ago legalized the homosexual unions. And the joke on the streets was, since, as you know, St. Patrick evangelized Ireland from paganism in the very early Christianity, 4th century, I think, the joke on the streets is that the vote is in Ireland, they'd rather have the snakes back than to have Christianity, to have anything worth fighting for. So we are given this gospel message of a worldly turmoil, right? It's not a pleasant picture. Mother against daughter, father against son, mother-in-law against daughter-in-law. And it pits something in there that says, I've got friction. There's something in my tangible world that's not right, and it's giving me angst. Thank God we have something to have angst over. Thank God that He planted something in our hearts, that language of love that we can speak that makes no sense in this world, and we can say, I love you. And that you as a parent, or you as a lover, if you're a child, if you as someone who loves someone else, can know that if I'm doing something that makes sense in this world, I'm at the computer day trading and I've got a couple $1,000s on the line and I'm moving stocks around, and my loved one, I get a phone call and says, your loved one needs you. If you know what it means to speak that language, you get up from that and you sacrifice whatever gains you would have had in the world, and you move. Something impels you. Something in your gut says, I love. And I'm willing to make that concession in the world because I understand a different thing. I understand love. And that's what the language God has given us to speak, since we're created in His image and likeness. What a sad state if we were to forget how to speak that language, or that we were to make concessions and say there's nothing worth loving. There's nothing worth having that angst for. Jesus wants to set the world on fire. We as Christians say, I can't wait either. I want the world to be on fire. I want it to burn with a passion for the Lord that makes us want Him, and to see the people that we love on this earth, which pales in such comparison to the love that He has for us, that we can say, I choose you over everything. There's the story that I've shared with you before of the martyrdom in Rome, the 12-year-old girl. It's an account. I think Eusebius is the one who writes it down. Don't quote me on that. But the accounts of the martyrs are very well documented. And her parents were faced with the problem of, you had to walk in front of the emperor and put the incense, drop a little incense into the burning pot. The emperor would sit there and watch you, and the Romans were very good about census. They'd take the whole city and parade them one by one in front of the emperor, and if you failed to drop the incense in the pot, it meant you did not think the emperor was a deity, was a god. And the devout Christians, as they walked past, did not drop the incense into the pot. And that was the Roman way of knowing who was a Christian and who was not, and who failed to worship the emperor. And the parents of this girl dropped the incense into the pot, right? And the girl said, and they were Christians, and the girl says, I know that you're not supposed to do that. I know there's one true God, and He is not it. And the Roman soldiers didn't want to kill her. The emperor probably didn't even want to kill her. But this is the law of the state. She had to die. She was given a lot of opportunity to recant. She said, no, I'll go to my martyrdom. Please don't try to convince me otherwise. And many Christians went that way. And it's something where they said, even the loved ones that I love on this earth, I understand that this love is a shadow or a way of understanding God's love. And when that fills my whole being, even though I love certain people on this earth, there's the author of love. That's the only one through whom I can love anybody on this earth. And it sets us apart. So Jeremiah is calling us to be set apart. The gospel is calling us to be set apart. This is a beautiful passage and an understanding of how we are to act in this world. May we know God so well through prayer and to let Him so affect our souls that we feel that love through our whole being, and that it manifests itself not only in our relationships to others, but in the entire people that we interact with, so that when Christians run into us, even without words, they know, I know someone else who speaks that language fluently. And there's a solace there. Thank God that we can experience that with each other, and thank God that we, through our actions, and just through loving, can set the world on fire.